This boy had failed at everything he tried. Life treated him like a bully. He nearly ran into the legendary truck Kuan, but a red traffic light saved him. After that, he kept moving forward until a pole fell from above and crushed him. That is how he woke up as Kella in a world that worships magic and throws away the weak. Unlike before, Kella woke up with a ridiculous gift. He grew into the greatest creation Wizard the Academy had ever seen, leaving all his fellow students far behind. Standing outside the gaming cafe, a kid excitedly shouts that a brand new map for Kangchi has finally dropped. His friend bragged that he was already #1 the moment he woke up, which left the other kid totally shocked. He admits the map is tough, and his friend jokes that the player Kangchi can't be human, while nearby our protagonist munches on a skewer as they both marvel at just how fast Kangyu moves. The protagonist's friend then turns and jokes, accusing him of using bots. He keeps wondering why that guy still eats there when he's already making a fortune from gaming. The hooded man just says the food here is so good, that's why he keeps coming back. He shifts the conversation to boast about his first place win again and insists they get ready. The friend gets angry, says it's easy for him to pretend, and calls him a bot again. With a serious look on his face, the protagonist thinks he isn't entirely wrong about him. It turns out he's actually an AI who finds his only real joy in the game, where he loves battling monsters and leveling up. That's where his true passion lies. He finishes thinking and admits that he only finds fun in the world of games and making maps. The scene shifts outside the gaming cafe, where the friends say their goodbyes after a long day of playing. His friend nudged him to spend some cash from his deep pockets on a snack, and the hero happily agreed to get it for them so they could finally leave. Walking by himself, the young man wonders why he can't stop playing that game. He tells himself that the reason is he can't control anything in the real world. In games, everything feels like it can be done, but in real life, it often seems like nothing can be achieved. Even the clumsy telephone poles are things he cannot budge. He believes that if he were truly in the game, he could fix everything with just one click of the mouse, but suddenly, a speeding truck bursts out of nowhere and charges straight at him. The car shoots forward right toward the distracted hero. But the real world is harsh, and he quickly sees that he can't just wish a big truck away like it's nothing. The driver hits the brakes hard, and the truck zooms right past him. The tires squealed loudly on the road, bringing the car to a halt only inches away from where he was standing. The boy jumps so hard he cracks a joke about almost getting sucked into another world. Furious, the driver screams at him, asking if he was trying to get himself killed. The hero just points over his shoulder with a casual shrug. He quietly tells the man to look at the signal first, which is flashing green to let them cross. The driver looks lost and doesn't know when the light changed, so the protagonist just walks away. With his back turned, he wonders just how frustrating and limited real life can feel. If he could flip a switch and change life like it's in a game, everything would suddenly make perfect sense and be so much easier to handle. Now he could use that power to build the world he really wanted. Just as things calm down, a nearby crane's cable suddenly snaps with a loud bang. People on the street are screaming in panic, shouting for everyone to move away from the crane. Our hero spots a tiny girl standing right beneath the huge metal beam about to fall. He freezes in shock for a heartbeat. Then his face hardens with fierce determination. The little girl stood frozen in fear, her eyes wide and her body too scared to move. On a split-second impulse, the protagonist dashes forward and shoves the child out of the way just in time. She holds the ball, which flies through the air after a push that saved her. The little girl tumbled across the ground, thrown a safe distance away by our hero. She hits the ground sitting up, scared as the young man's thought finishes, telling her that he can only move his own body. In the end, a crushing beam falls and kills the hero who gave his life to save the girl. Lying on the ground, beaten and broken, the protagonist fights to breathe as his life fades away. As his sight fades, he begins to wonder if this is what it feels like to be here. In his last breath, he realizes that living without powers or control is exactly what real life is. Suddenly, his body drifted into a strange purple world, leaving him completely stunned by what had just happened. He glances around, completely baffled, trying to figure out just how he ended up here. The darkness was so deep it felt like a black hole, and he started to wonder if he was actually dead. Suddenly, a scary voice rang out from nowhere, demanding his attention. A huge, shadowy monster shows up to ask him how the terrible place of nothingness felt to him. Startled, the young man shouts, asking who that thing is and what this talk about oblivion means. Then the entity says death is just a path to being born again, which makes everything feel even more confusing. Our hero stood frozen, trying to make sense of those crazy words. The being keeps talking, promising him a chance to get his memories back. Boiling with anger, The boy shouts for the creature to finally speak his language, but the entity only ignores him and roars a command for the one who has forgotten to open his eyes. Desperate, the protagonist begged him to stop, but he didn't know what his body was going through. Suddenly, the young man's eyes flash into a wild, animal-like shade. He suddenly jerks awake, screaming in terror as he sees his own face twisted with demon horns and fangs. Still stunned, the boy leans against a table, trying to make sense of what just happened. He glances around and sees that the entire place looks like an ancient castle. Then he sees his own face in the mirror and is terrified by the dark monster staring back. He can't believe he's still alive, staring at his hands in shock as he realizes they have turned into shark claws. He realizes he's probably in a whole new world, just like in those anime shows. But the feeling when he touches himself is so clear that everything feels absolutely real. He knows it's no dream, and his despair grows deeper. He just stood there in the hall, trying to solve this crazy puzzle. He looks around, confused about where he is, but quickly realizes he must be standing in an old castle. Confused, he wonders who he is, but a sudden voice cuts in to ask what he's mumbling about. His eyes go wide when he suddenly spots someone else standing in the hallway. Suddenly, someone pops up behind him and stabs him before he can even try to defend himself. Blood fills his throat as he struggles to breathe, staring in shock at the dagger that just struck him. The demon girl lunges forward with a cruel grin, eager to cause him pain. She looms over him and sneers, asking if he really thinks he's about to die now. He gasps in agony as he realizes her blade has pierced right through the center of his chest. Still coughing up blood, the young man asks why she suddenly attacked him. The girl pretends to be confused about his words, then suddenly admits she hates him and lunges at him to drive him away. He freezes in horror, convinced she's actually trying to kill him right now. Just as she's about to strike the final blow, another person steps in and catches the sword with their bare hand. The protagonist turns around, stunned that help showed up right when he needed it most. A man gripping a sword with a whip in his other hand blocks the girl's path, and she demands to know why he's stopping her again. Suddenly, a woman steps forward and warns her not to harm her own brother, leaving everyone shocked. Our hero is totally lost, staring around confused at who these people are and what's happening. She walks up to him, complaining that his sister hurt him once more, and hands him a drink. He mistakes the liquid for a potion, gulps it down in one go, and feels relieved to finally have some help. But the woman offers a weird smile and remarks that today he's drinking without any suspicion. The young man's eyes go wide with pure panic as he realizes he's fallen into a deadly trap. In a split second, he throws up a nasty purple goo, proving the drink was poisoned. He grabs his throat as it burns, screaming in agony while the poison works its way through him. His sister gets furious and cries out that she meant to kill him herself, not to watch him die like this. The other woman, looking bored, says the poison recipe failed once again. His whole body shivers with pain as he wonders why he has to suffer so much. Just then, the heavy hall doors creaked open to spill a blindingly bright light into the room. A guard shouts that the demon king Helkeldun is back, and the sisters jump in fear at his return. As the protagonist hears the word father and feels even more lost, the demon king's clenched fist shows how unhappy he is with what's happening. And then, the great demon king shows up, radiating a ridiculous amount of power. He wonders at the terrible sounds he hears, and the hero realizes this man is the demon king. The sister tries to get out of trouble and blames him, saying he started all the chaos. But the king bursts with power, orders her to be quiet, and instantly silences them both. He grabs his daughter by the neck, mocking the weak groans he hears echoing through his castle. As she's being strangled, the woman begs her dad for just a moment of mercy. At the same time, our hero realizes that if those two are truly his sisters, then that scary, cruel demon king must be his dad. The king turns away from her begging and declares that his castle will only ever hear two sounds. The young boy suddenly wakes up, sensing that his so-called dad is about to say something bad. He keeps talking about how he longs to hear the sound of a demon being born and the quiet of an honorable death. When he hears this, the truth sinks in and fear takes total control of him. Then, a scream of pure agony rings out through the dark castle. The scene shows the demon king standing in the hall with many bodies lying at his feet. The poison kept working, and the boy coughed up blood until he was badly hurt. He finally realizes he's been reborn in another world. But he can't believe that out of everyone, his dad ended up being this guy. Lying on the floor, he groans in frustration and can't believe that out of all his choices, it had to be the demon king. The story jumps back to when the hero was just a little kid crying and shouting for his mom. He says his sister Caldera stabbed his eye with a fork, and all his mother does is sigh over his pain. The boy continues to cry, claiming his sister Tarmi poisoned his food too. His mother meets his eyes with a chill stare and says, "In that case, you must act." Then she tells him to pay them back in kind, just like a real demon would. But the boy is terrified and warns her that if he does that, his sisters might kill him. She sneered, telling him he must kill them before they get to him. The little boy stands frozen in shock, a single tear slipping down his cheek as he struggles to believe what she just said. We are told that his father killed 12 of his own brothers and sisters just to become the mighty demon king. His mother tells him again that he must hit first if anyone tries to kill him. Suddenly, she draws a hidden dagger to teach him a lesson. Without even a second's pause, she plunges the blade into his back, causing the boy to scream in agony and shock. As she wraps her arms around him, she whispers that this is exactly how a real demon behaves. He screams in agony for his mother, and she asks if he has finally learned his lesson. Suddenly, the hero wakes up screaming, pulling himself free from the terrible dream. A servant crept up to the bed to see if he was awake, but seeing him panting, he realized this was the body he had been reborn into, filled with Kella's memories. He looks at his body and sees that every cut has vanished without anyone helping him. They say that Kella's power to heal and grow again is far stronger than anyone else's. The servant tells him Lord Kella has been sleeping for a long time while he stares at his own hands in confusion. Then she calls him up to eat with the family, and he gets up right away. Kella was always looked down on by his siblings because he was too shy. Rin remembers suggesting an outfit, only to grumble that his brother's servant still has to dress him. He then jokes that she could help him, too, but the old Kella refuses, feeling completely embarrassed. In another memory, the servant tells him to clean the blanket, and he finds it strange since that's her job. He also recalls finding Rin asleep soundly in his bed, as if she had made herself right at home. Even when she sent a doll to do her work, leaving the old Kella in shock, our hero couldn't help but think about how weak Kella was for letting a servant scare him. With a serious look, he decides that the Kella of today will be very different. He then squeezes his fist hard, proving just how determined he has become. He sees that the old Kella spent his whole life being bullied, and it feels exactly the same here. He stared ahead with fierce resolve, knowing that in this harsh world, the weak don't survive. He then walks with his servant toward the royal family's big dining table. The Demon King stares him down with a fierce glare, his deep voice growling a warning that Kella is late. The king's imposing presence made it clear to the protagonist that he was definitely the boss in charge. He sits at the table and says sorry for being late, knowing the hard part is about to start. But his sister surprises him with a hard kick from under the table. A sudden attack stabs his leg, a wild but loving move from the family. He clenched his teeth tight, trying to ignore the sharp pain so nobody would think he was weak. His sister mocks him, telling him he looks too weak and needs to eat more. Feeling annoyed, he starts to worry that things will get messy if they discover he's not really Kella. He holds back from eating and gives thanks, knowing he has to wait for now. At that, our hero grabs the spoon and takes a brave bite of the soup. But right then, he feels the poison hit his body and knows the food isn't normal. His sister chimes in to say the soup was made just for him and asks if it isn't tasty. Even though the poison burns, he hides his pain and tells his family the soup tastes great while secretly thinking that their demons don't matter to him at all. His face darkens as he decides they aren't family, but just monsters. With a steely look in his eye, he swears he won't take their punches anymore and decides it's time to act. A memory reveals that in his previous life, he always dreamed of accomplishing his goals all by himself. Because he thought this way, he eventually became the top map maker in the game. But he also remembered that real life was a completely different story. In truth, he was a helpless man who couldn't defend himself at all. Because of that, he decided he would never let himself go through that again. He promises himself he'll never let something like this happen again without a fight. Suddenly, back in the present, his eyes sharpen with a fierce new resolve. With a dark grin, he hands the poisoned soup to his sister Seldra, then suddenly throws the whole plate right in her face, causing her to scream in shock. Then he yanks the dagger free from his leg and declares that he is about to hand Tarma the gift meant for his sister. In one quick motion, he used the very knife that had hurt him to stab his other sister. The Demon King freezes in shock when his youngest son acts completely out of character. He rises to challenge his father, wondering why demons are allowed to share happy family meals. Furious, the protagonist slammed the table down with all his might and yelled that from now on, everyone would eat alone. The entire family stands stunned by his rebellion, unable to believe what they have just witnessed. With eyes burning with pure hate, he stepped forward to challenge them all, daring them to see who would walk away the winner. Then we step outside the castle to see the huge, impressive fortress of the demon. The young man grinned with satisfaction, thinking that rebelling felt just right. We see that after that, his furious father beat him up badly. Despite that, he bounced back fast, leaving him amazed at how strong his body really is. He stares at his hand and feels a strange power rising up from inside him. In that very moment, he discovers he is the Demon King's son and has inherited powers that are nothing short of amazing. Now the protagonist is eager to test just how powerful this new power of his really is. The servant speaks of the demon's power, but he cuts her off and tells her to stop giving him orders. She stares in shock at his wild mood swing, trying to figure out why he's acting so strange all of a sudden. Standing all by himself, the young man thinks hard about the scary power waiting for him. He believes that based on Kella's memories, this has to be one of the worst things he has ever gone through. Even knowing he has to face it, the young man won't skip out on it. The scene shifts to the training grounds where the instructor shouts that Caldera and Tarm are staying away today. Suddenly, our hero spots familiar faces in the crowd, and his stomach turns with a sinking feeling. He recalls them from Kella's past and knows the terrible news they brought. In a memory from the past, the old Kella shook with terror and confessed that he was utterly useless in battle. One of the bullies would then say there was no choice since it was a class in charge at him. Using that excuse, the guy would hammer Kella until he screamed in pain while lying on the ground. We see that these guys are real monsters who love making others suffer. To them, hurting Kella was just a cruel game they played for fun. Back in the present, one of his sisters steps in and warns him not to go easy on him. She smiles cruelly and says, "Show me what you really can do," giving him permission to prove himself. The attacker cheers her on and readies a magic blast, even more powerful than before for Kella. But our hero only recalls the old Kella pleading for him to end the torture. The poor boy hated fighting and just wanted it to end, but no one ever listened to him. Our hero is certain that the old Kella wasn't truly weak. His heart was too soft, so everyone always took advantage of him and beat him up. But now everything has changed, and he steps up to this challenge with a completely new look. He flashes a confident grin and decides to use this new strength for good. On the training ground, the instructor in glasses turns to the group and asks who was fighting just now. A red-haired man replied that he and Kella had been walking over with a sneer. He keeps taunting him with a smirk, saying he should have just called Kella sir. Kella explodes with rage at the insult, while the other guy quickly offers a fake apology. The instructor then tells them both to start the next round right there in front of everyone. The redhead gathers his purple energy to fight and checks if Kella is ready. Amidst the crowd, other students sneer at them, claiming that young Master Kella is about to get beaten up again. He listens to the nasty insults and feels his anger grow with every word. His rival grins with cruel delight as Kella suffers. But Kella believes that he and his rival are actually very much alike in many ways. The scene shifts back in time to reveal that he was bullied in his previous life too. Once upon a time, he had no money and was too weak, so everyone made fun of him. But he chooses to leave all that behind and unleashes a mighty blue glow. His eyes burn with a bright light, and power blasts out around him with all its might. The rival stands frozen in shock, staring at Kella with wide eyes, completely unable to believe that she could be hiding such a massive amount of power. The other students are frozen in shock by the magic, unsure if it's even real. His opponent is so terrified by the pressure that he is frozen and can't move a muscle. Kella steps forward, promising to hold back and telling his opponent he only needs to survive a single hit. He strikes his rival with a powerful, energy-filled punch that hits hard. He lands one final blow, knocking the man hard into the courtyard dirt. The whole crowd froze in shock because his opponent couldn't even move fast enough to stop the hit. Even the instructor is frantic, worried that the boy is dead from that hit. With the rival crushed and coughing blood, Kella looked down at him and demanded how he dared speak to the Demon King's son. Terrified, the man begs for forgiveness and calls him Lord Kella for the very first time. Then he warns him not to make the same mistake again, or next time he'll be dead. The students couldn't believe it, thinking that was definitely the same loser Kella, just as usual. Then Kella turns and shouts at the instructor, who is shaking with fear. He flashes a scary grin and wonders if the teacher should stop the lesson right now. Amid the throng, the servant Rin watches everything, stunned by Lord Kella's power. Rin feels like he's acting all wrong and nothing like his usual self. From afar, she spots Helkuldun, Kella's father, watching them from the balcony. In the courtyard, Kella stands next to his rival's unconscious body lying on the ground. Helkuldun watches the scene from above with no reaction at all. The view shifts to the family castle, where a voice cries out that they can never forgive this. While Caldera seethes in the soothing medicinal bath, TY gently urges her to cool down. TMY then points out that she doesn't have the crazy healing power that Kella does. Sela panics and screams that this is too strange and demands to know why. Tari quietly realizes Kella has changed. While over there, a furious Kella screams that dinner is now separate. The shocking news left the whole family, even Hel, stunned by how he acted. Just then, Tarim notices something strange in her father's face. Hel Caledon. They were told that even a single, faint smile from their father meant everything. She stood frozen in shock as he smiled at her for the very first time in their entire lives, right then and there. Caldera gets so angry she screams that she can't believe her father smiled at Kella. Tari agrees it's not normal, but Caldera, still furious, snaps at Kella to explain what she means. T then reveals that she knows Caldera would sooner die than join her. The sudden words leave Seldra wide-eyed and confused, with no clue where this is heading. Then she suggests they lay down their weapons to look after Kella together. She smirked, showing just how sure she was about her idea. Seldra pauses for a moment, then decides the idea isn't so terrible after all. The two then decide to kill Kella before he gets their father's attention again. The scene shifts back to the classroom, where Kella senses something is off. Suddenly, a demon with a huge, terrifying grin jumps out at us. They explain that this was the former demon king, known to everyone as Turkaldan. The instructor keeps talking about how amazing the past people were. Kella thinks he looks like a real demon, but the instructor tells him Sir Turk only died because the Sky Guild planned it out of cowardice. He kept talking about how, since a few guilds gathered near their kingdom, things have been changing. They told us that Kella somehow already had this info stored in his mind. The scene shifts to Kella on the balcony, feeling trapped by the guilds and unable to leave the castle. So he kneels in despair and curses himself for having to live there forever. Back in the classroom, Kella listens to every word with a face that shows she is serious and ready to do anything. The instructor warns that they're joining forces with the Sky Guild to launch an attack on the Demon Kingdom. To help King Hel wipe them all out, the students had to get tough. So he commands everyone to pour their hearts into every training session from now on. The students shout back, promising to fight for every demon's honor. But Kella stays silent, watching everything and letting her mind work through the whole thing. The view shifts to him sitting atop the castle wall, gazing out over the horizon. He looks across the huge land and knows he must find a way out. He knows that staying trapped in the castle any longer means he could die at any moment, perhaps killed by his own treacherous siblings. Just then, he asks Rin if her dad is really leaving in 3 days, and she nods and says yes. He then turns to Rin and asks if she knows something important. Kella points out the castle's weak spot, leaving the girl completely baffled by her sudden words. He says there's no map architect to help navigate the battlefield. Because of this, the enemy guilds are hiding in abandoned places to launch surprise attacks. So, he decides to spend the time before the expedition mapping out the whole area. Driven by a desire to let his father Hel Caledon wipe out all their enemies, Kella smiles with confidence and promises to help win the war. But deep inside, he tells himself that now is the moment he can finally plan his real escape. He notices the map doesn't match the real world, so he decides to draw it exactly how he wants. Just then, Kella screams at Ren to carve out a secret office in the castle's basement right this second. He says he needs a secret spot to work where his dad can't find out about his plan. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a dark room where the only light comes from flickering torches with magic in their flames. Deep inside, Huckledun sits there, letting a scary pink glow pour from him. He is so suspicious of his son that he believes Kella will never be able to get away. He rises to his feet, knowing he must act before it's too late. Kella's dad realizes he has to go see the situation for himself. Back in the basement, Kella scrunches up her face with disgust and asks, "What is this?" Rin leads him into the grim, dusty office, and he can't help but gag at the terrible sight. She whispered that she did her best in secret, but he shouted at her to do it perfectly. He thinks he needs to be a bit stricter with her to make sure she respects him. The servant freezes in fear, convinced that Kella he stands before isn't the one he ever knew. But deep inside, she believes that despite all the trouble, something about him has finally gotten better. She starts to see him as cool and falls in love with her new master. He yells at Rin to stop staring and get him coffee, so the desperate servant runs off shouting that she'll bring the master's drink. With the office empty and Kella gone, she gives him the green light to begin his plan. He glances at the map, seeing no dreams within the castle. Yet with a steely resolve, he declares it's time to draw his own path. The camera jumps to Rin sprinting through the castle corridors, still shouting about coffee. Suddenly, she freezes mid-step, only to realize she has no idea what coffee even is. Suddenly, she hears a deep, terrifying voice calling her name right next to her. Hell Caldun asked why she was down in the basement without Kella around. He stares hard and asks exactly where Kella is right now. The servant freezes in panic, stammering because she has no idea how to reply to her king. He commands her to speak, but she holds back the truth because Kella told her to keep it secret. The camera shifts to the hidden office door, revealing that Kella is still inside. He stares hard at the map, enjoying every minute of the adventure. It turns out he's lucky because this world is just a game he already knows how to play. As he marks the map, a smile creeps across his face because he's having the time of his life. He recalls that back in his former life, his greatest joy was drawing maps. Suddenly, the secret office door starts to rattle and shake like it's trying to break free. Then the door blasts open, and Kella is flung backward by the magic. It was Hell Caldun, shouting in shock that he couldn't believe someone had created an office without telling him. Kella was frozen in shock, wondering how Hell had found him down there. Without even a moment's hesitation, his father rushes forward and pushes his own fist right into his chest. Then he leans in a whisper that if Kell really wants him dead, he'd better stop acting like a coward and just do it. The young man coughs up a mouthful of blood, staring at his father in shock as he realizes the terrible truth of what he's done. He feels a crushing, impossible pain and knows this is the true power of the great demon king. His body was soaked in cold sweat as he knew, for certain that this time, death was finally coming for him. Desperate, he shouts for his dad to check out the map he just drew. But Hell grabs him, lifts him off the ground, and demands to know what the heck he's staring at on that paper. Even though she's hurt, Kella warns that the castle grounds make for terrible battlefields. He insists that if they reshape the map exactly as he sketched it, the victory will be entirely theirs. He promises the map will be a lifesaver in the battles ahead. Hell is shocked by his son's surprising smartness. He yanks his hand back so hard that Kella screams from the pain. His father stares down at him from the floor and demands to know why he built the office without telling anyone. Kella says that if he'd asked his dad for help, his dad would never have let him do it. That's why he waited until the map was fully drawn before showing it. The Demon King stays quiet, carefully studying his son's words and bravery. He then says that since he is the king's son, he wants to help wipe out the army from the heavens. The father and son lock eyes, the air thick with tension between them. Rin is absolutely scared that Kella just doomed herself by talking to the king that way. Breaking the quiet, his dad asks how long he thinks it'll take to finish. The question takes Kella completely by surprise, leaving her in shock that she just heard those words. Hell points a bloody finger and asks how many days it will take to finish the map. Seeing that his father gets it, Kella says 5 days is plenty, but Hell drops a bombshell. The heavenly army is showing up in just 3. He warns that Kella's map will be worthless if it takes so long to finish. But Kella quickly corrects himself, saying he can finish it in 5 hours instead of 5 days. Helkalun stares in stunned disbelief, unable to believe how bold the boy is acting. He promises the building will be done in 3 days and asks to take charge of the project. His father looks him straight in the eye, studying the plan he offers and the strong will burning in his gaze. He stared in amazement, wondering for the very first time if it could be true. So he gives his word and encourages Kella to finish the map. But as he turns, he warns that if Kella is just bluffing, he will personally tear the boy to shreds along with the map he drew. Even though Kella is bleeding, she smiles and promises to do her best. With that, the Demon King finally turns around and walks out of the secret office. Alone, Kella grins with delight, winking to himself as he basks in the victory of having finally convinced his father. But suddenly, the pain from his wound rushes back with full force, giving him a sharp sting. He can't stand the pain and heaves up all the blood that was stuck in his throat. That's when he realizes the demon would have killed him on the spot if he hadn't been useful. Rin is stunned, realizing that Kella actually managed to talk the mighty Demon King into doing her bidding. He screams at her to stop standing there and lead him to the infirmary, so she instantly agrees. With fresh bandages wrapped around him, he proudly declared that he had finished the map in just 5 hours, just as he promised. So the castle's people gather and start building something huge. The kingdom's mages cast illusion spells to make the whole construction site vanish from sight. They shift the land so the foes miss the change, and Kella believes Kell is drawing the new map just like it was in the game he used to play. He smiled with satisfaction, knowing everything had gone exactly as he planned. The view shifts to the Sky Guild's camp, where someone lets out a scream of pure shock. Guildmaster Hermison is the one who spots the battlefield shifting and changing right before their eyes. The knight says he found out the demons were tricking everyone with magic spells that made things look fake. He then asks if they should attack and stop them, but the master becomes thoughtful. Hermison gives a grave look and shakes his head, saying not yet. He gives a small smirk, knowing that trying now is pointless because it's already too late. Soon, in just 3 days, the mighty Talcon squad, the strongest fighters from Talawa, will arrive. They tell us this team was built piece by piece over many years and is finally ready. Hermes laughs, declaring that this elite army will crush the Demon King Hell. Riding atop a dragon, the squad leader yells that the castle is just 2 days away, and with that, the whole army charges forward at a breakneck pace. The general shouts that the Demon King's 1,000-year rule is finally coming to an end. They all rush forward, shouting and ready to set the demon castle on fire. The red-haired commander looked at General Killman and said, "You have to admit, leading us this way is just incredible." Just then, a soldier asks Commander Shrills if they can really pull off this hunt. She smiles back and tells him that the Tolkien squad isn't like the others. She stands tall and declares with total certainty that they will slay the great Demon King. The story shifts back to the Demon King's castle, where the main tower reaches high into the sky. Sitting on his throne, Helcaldan sees that Kella wasn't lying about the map, but he admits that even with all that, his son's plan still had some work to do before it was perfect. His body was worn out, so he couldn't be picky about what he ate. With a steely resolve, he vowed that come tomorrow, he would finally settle the score with the army of heaven. Meanwhile, the mages rushed to finish their job because they had very little time left. Workers hurry to speed things up while Kella and Rin watch from the window, with Rin nodding that the plan is going smoothly. He realizes that drawing a map in the real world feels totally different from doing it in the game. The young guy is blown away that he can reshape the land exactly how he wants. Now all he had to do was wait for the big fight between heaven and hell to start. He brightens his eyes and gets ready, knowing tomorrow will be the big day. The next morning, the Tolkien squad finally reached their meeting spot, and everyone cheered with joy. The general thanked everyone for showing up and declared that his team was ready to fight. With a burst of excitement, Hermes shouts for everyone to rush straight to the Demon King's castle right now. Right then, the general roars out an order for his squad to push forward and win the victory for Tulyua. Suddenly, a glowing teleportation circle sparks to life right in the heart of the enemy camp. The same strange light appeared on the ground of the camp, leaving Master Hermes utterly confused. The leader of the Tolkien squad freezes in panic, completely lost and confused by what's going on. He shouts that it's a surprise attack and gets everyone into a defensive line, but a huge energy blast strikes the area and sends several soldiers flying. The general and his men lifted their shields, puzzled by what they had just seen. One of the guild knights stares in shock, convinced that what he's seeing can't possibly be true. Out of the thick blue smoke, a huge demon steps forward to face them. Then they finally saw it was the Demon King, Helcount himself. The general is scared because he has no clue how he ended up at their base. The view jumps back as Kella explains that he took away the magic watch the angels were using. He promises that his dad can now teleport right to the throne without the enemy army spotting him, and Helcalun starts thinking about zipping straight to Heaven's base. Just then, Teldor steps out to beg her father to hold his fire and not charge the enemy base just yet. Tay also arrives, warning that the danger is too great even for her father. Hel gets angry and demands to know if they doubt the Demon King's power. They try to say he isn't healed yet, but he tells them both to shut up and warns them that he'll be the one making the final decision. He then shouts that tomorrow he will kill all his enemies without any mercy. The battle scene flashes back as the general yells that the enemy caught them off guard, but he promises they'll make them regret it because they are the Tolkien squad. He lifts his weapon and shouts for the whole squad to charge forward immediately. Helcalun focuses his mind, letting a blue aura of power glow around him as he gets ready to fight. His power bursts out like a giant bomb, smashing a huge hole right into the ground. Far away, Kella stands atop a tower and watches his troops assemble. He feels he's finally ready with all his strength to launch the attack. He stares ahead with fierce determination and yells that every last thing is ready. Then he barks the order, sending all his monsters charging forward right now. As he gives the order, a huge crowd of orcs and other beasts charges at the enemy. One knight throws his hands up in despair as the castle's army charges at them. Suddenly, all kinds of strange monsters burst out from underneath the ground and catch everyone off guard. The soldiers spot the trap and yell out to hold the demons back. Standing at the tower's peak, Caligis grips his fist hard and watches the battle unfold below. He gives a wicked grin and says everything is going exactly as he planned. Just as things seemed quiet, T suddenly pops out from behind and shouts that she's finally found him, telling him she doesn't know why he did this, but his plan isn't going to work. Seldora shows up too, letting him know she wouldn't have helped if he hadn't gone too far. Kella freezes in shock and spins around to find his two sisters waiting to betray him once more. TMY points a green energy weapon at him and screams that there is no place for him here, demanding that he die. Without thinking twice, she jumps forward and drives her blade deep into Kella's stomach with one fast, exact move. The energy blade cuts straight through his body, leaving a terrible wound on the young man. He looks down, feeling the huge pain of the hit and screaming in agony. Tarm smiles, gets ready, and calls for Sela to finish the job now. Then Solaris steps in, declaring that not even his power to heal can save him from this fate. With one fear strike, Caldera tears Kella's head off and screams that healing won't help now. The two sisters let out a cruel laugh as they basked in the terrible sight unfolding before them. Kella's head flies off, and he is so shocked by the betrayal that he can't believe what just happened. In that moment, he knows it's over as his own sisters defeat him, leaving his decapitated body to tumble from the top of a wall in a shocking scene. His dead body plummets through the rain as a strange energy fills the sky. We see a close-up of his head dropping, his eyes wide with shock and fear. Then the body and head crash down to the floor with a heavy, sickening bang. Even lying on the ground, Kella's head throbs with pain as she struggles to take one final breath. Up on the wall, Tarm and Caldera cheer, finally celebrating that they've beaten him. Suddenly, a glowing blue blade popped out of nowhere, catching Tarm completely off guard as Caldera stabbed her ally in the back and shouted that she'd found her weak spot. She sneers at Tarmi's speed while ruthlessly jamming the dagger even deeper. Tari stares at the weapon, shocked to see it is her mother's forbidden dagger. But Seldora doesn't care, declaring that rules are pointless and weapons are meant to be used. T is so angry about being betrayed that she can't believe her sister would really do this. Caldera grins with a wicked look and warns that if she kills her now, she'll be the only one left. She shows that by this path, she'll be the only one left to claim the throne. Tarm screams Seldora's name while grinding her teeth in pain and rage. Swirling with hate, TM rushes forward, screaming that she will kill Seldora for betraying her. Seldora stepped back with a grin, declaring the fight over the instant she had stabbed her opponent. The two clash with a powerful strike that sends energy exploding across the courtyard. The camera turns back to Kella, who is lying on the ground and watching everything unfold. He thinks about how cruel they were and starts to wonder if that is really what demons are like. But then he saw they were just how he'd always pictured them. Suddenly, the view snaps back to his body, lying still right in the middle of the courtyard. Out of the blue, the blood and body parts start stitching themselves back together in a spooky, weird fashion. We found Outrun was using a weird kind of magic to twist Kella's body. She then lifts his head up and walks quietly over to the body lying on the floor. Rin starts to fix the head back on, but Kella suddenly wakes up and snaps her neck with scary strength. The view shifts to far-off mountains where a general shouts orders for his soldiers to move forward. He commands a gateway to be torn open so he can sneak up and strike down from above. But on the other side, a human army waited, shouting loudly that they had already figured out the enemy's plan. The human commander shouts to kill every demon and then gives the order to charge. But the demon general doesn't care, just shouting for them all to fight for their race's honor. And so, the two armies collide head-on, and the fight truly starts. Amidst all the chaos, a red dragon shows up with a fiery blast ready to shoot from its mouth. Then it spits out a massive burst of energy that smashes through everything in its way. General Killman steps up to the assault and quips that it's been ages since he last saw a dragon's fire, while Hlacalden laughs from atop the roaring beast, holding it tight. The demon jumps off the monster's back and crashes onto the ground with a loud thud. Killman roars in fury, screaming that the bastard barely got away. The human boss shouts for everyone to throw their attacks at the same time. A fearless demon army charges straight at their enemies, but right behind them, a giant blue energy monster suddenly appears. Killman watches the dust settle, guessing if they actually hit their mark. But to his shock, he sees the attack failed, and the monster is still standing right there. We get a close look at the creature's arm, which shines with a cold, powerful energy. The monster steps out and says the past doesn't matter anymore. He swells up to his full size and warns that he only needs to kill everyone there, while Killman screams in desperation that the enemy is ready to fight using its final form. He then shouts for everyone to throw everything they have into the fight, even if it means risking their very lives. The creature's eye blazed with such a bright, scary light that it sent a shock of power through everyone, making them all afraid. Then the view snaps back to the castle, wrapped in a dark and heavy silence. A beam of light shines through the new hole, proving the last fight finally made a way through. Down below, Rin shook with fear while holding Kella's head steady. His neck was covered in blood as he begged her to keep going. Then she screams in panic begging for it to work fast. The story jumps back to a moment where Rin screams that it's gross and wonders when she'll finally get used to it. Kella, missing an arm, screams in pain and begs her to hurry up and put it back. We see a close-up of her pushing the limb back into place while he twists in pain as he heals. With a sweaty face, Rin fearfully asks if it's finally over, but Kella looks at his hand and confirms it worked again, just like before. Then he declares they must do the same to his head, filling Rin with sheer terror. Kella tells Rin he must try it out with his own head, which leaves Rin utterly heartbroken. He asks her to cut it gently, but Rin shouts no, screaming that she won't do it. The memory fades, and Kella snaps back to the now, saying, "That's enough playing around for today." He then tells Rin to find Caldera's servant and give her his exact words. The girl trembles with tension as she faces the task, yet she knows she has no choice but to follow his commands. She trembles with fear as she hurries to the other servant to pass along the lie. Rin warns that Kella intends to slay the young Master Seldra right in the middle of the fight. She explains that he plans to strike right when the Demon King is busy battling the heavens. Kilder's servant was so furious he couldn't believe that Traitor had planned such a betrayal. But Rin quickly realizes this is the perfect moment for Seldra to strike first. She promises her friend that chopping off the man's head will kill him, no matter how fast he recovers. The scene flashes back to the fight, where Helkalun clenches his teeth in frustration because the plan actually worked. Back on the ground, Rin cradles Kella's still form in her arms. She calls him an idiot because his death would ruin their plan, but then he suddenly wakes up and asks who she thinks is the idiot. Rin screams Ren's name in terror, unable to believe the man is still alive. He gets up, admits that mana-infused daggers made his healing slow and nearly killed him, but with a victorious grin he says he survived and his plan is still working, which makes Rin cry with relief, because she can't hold back her emotions. She then hugs Kella tightly, screaming that she thought he was dead. Feeling totally embarrassed, he blushes and asks what on earth she's doing. Kella steps back and says he survived, so she can stop now because he has to go. He pulls out the contract seal and announces that he is breaking their agreement. With his hand open, he gives his servant Rin total freedom. A magical glow wraps around the girl, who stands frozen in shock and can only whisper his name. He tells her that since the contract is done, she has no more duties to worry about. With one final smile, Kella turns to tell her to live the life she always dreamed of. Rin froze in her tracks, too shocked to say a word as her master moves suddenly. He then walks toward the light, ready to leave the place for good. The scene shifts back in time, showing a young Kella asking her to be his friend instead of his servant. Back in the present, the memory brings Rin to tears as she finally understands his feelings. She sprints after him, screaming for him to let her come along, but Kella shakes her head and tells her to stay put. Rin insists on coming along, but he shouts that she'll only get in his way. The story jumps back to the fight, where a wounded General Killman shouts that Hellcown is a monster. They discovered Hell's arm had been ripped off, sending blood spurting all over the floor. But even though he was totally beaten up, he was still standing there, which left Killman completely shocked. The general finally sees that the terrifying creature standing before him is the great demon himself. Killman shouts in anger, admitting he can't beat this guy no matter how hard he tries. He knows that no matter who arrives, no human being can stop this disaster. Then Hell quietly turns his head to watch the mess left behind by the long fight. He saw that the human army had nearly vanished in the fight. His eyes keep moving across the field, studying the sad result of that terrible war. The same fate fell upon his own men, who were brutally killed, and the camera zooms in on another fallen warrior to show just how savage the fighting was. With blood on his lips, he screams out for Seldra, Tarmi, and Kella. Up close, we saw it wasn't just his arm that had been cut. His neck was slashed too. He shuts his eyes and accepts that his children will never save him. But he decides this is his battle alone, so he will burn every last drop of his mana to win. On the battlefield, Hell shouts that the fight is finally over and blasts his power loose. Far away, Kella and Rin ran as hard as they could through a dark tunnel to get away. He then spots a bright opening ahead, knowing it's his only way to slip past the Watchers. He offers a relieved smile, dreaming that the moment he arrives, he'll be truly free. Suddenly, Rin grabs him, shouts for him to stop, and leaves Kella completely confused. Suddenly, a wall of blue lightning just pops up out of nowhere, cutting off their way. Another purple energy shows up, and Kella wonders what it is while catching the smell of blood. The two stare in fear as Kella confirms the strong smell of blood he sensed before. A shadowy figure in a hood steps forward, sneering at Hellcown as he tries to lead his children away. He shows he knew exactly where to hide, trapping Kella and Run, and then an entire squad of enemies steps out to make things even worse. Kella snaps in anger, realizing the enemies had set up a guard at the exit. The squad leader drops a bombshell, admitting he knew about the construction and vows that nobody from the royal family will get away with it. He points straight at Kella and tells his men to kill him without hesitation, but Rin jumps in front and raises a shield, screaming for her master to run while she stands her ground against them. Kella is stunned and asks what she can do by herself against all of them. But Rin shouts that she is his servant and will protect him at any cost. He recalls that her magic is strictly for defense, so she can hardly strike back. He realizes that Run is ready to give her life, so he can live. She then spins around and screams for her master to run away fast, but Kella ignores the plea, yanks her by the shoulder, and stops her from defending herself. Suddenly, he shoves her backward and shouts that she's acting too proud. He warns her that if she follows him, she shouldn't die right in front of him, because seeing her go would make him so mad it would hurt. Rin is so stunned he's lying on the ground, staring at what he just said and heard. The enemy mage laughs, certain that there's no escape for them now. He readies a strike, claiming his magic is plenty for Kella, but Kella gnashes his teeth and warns that he's always been too shy to use it. He bursts into a storm of lightning, showing that everything they thought they knew about him was a lie. Rin watches from afar, lost in thought as he wonders how Master Kella could be so powerful. The mage was stunned because he had thought Kella's magical energy was running low. But before he could even move, Kella zoomed right at him like a blur. With one quick strike, he hits the enemy straight on, making them scream in pain. Kella stared down at the fallen mage and sneered, "Is that all you have?" before warning him that next time he needed to check his sources. Kella grabs the mage's face, who begs for a moment to wait, but she ignores him and smashes him into the ground with a burst of blue energy. The man collapsed right away, sinking into the earth while his body screamed in pain from the blow. Rin couldn't believe his eyes as the other mages shouted at him, calling him a weakling, even though he had just beaten a sky mage with nothing but his own mana. Kella just says he already told them that the information was wrong. With no other way out, the last two mages ready themselves to cast a forbidden spell. They know the attack will burn through every last drop of their magic at once. It's a dangerous game because if the attack goes wrong, they'll be the ones who end up dead. Spotting the danger, Rin sprints away and screams for her master to retreat and get out. Beams of light stab through Kella's shocked body, but it was actually Run who leaped in front to take the hit, screaming in agony. Kella tries to move, only to find his body frozen solid by the spear's magic. With nothing left at her to spare, Rin spins around and cries out her master's name, even though she is mortally wounded. She then apologizes, admitting that this time she simply couldn't protect him. The two mages let out a breath of relief, happy that their dangerous plan worked exactly as they hoped. As the leader readied the final strike against Kella, declaring it her end, his partner stepped in to remind him that after all their hard work, they both earned a reward. He then grabs Run with a sick grin, asking if it wouldn't be fun to play with her. Furious, she screams that she knows all their secrets about the demon race, but the mage points a dagger at her throat and orders her to be quiet and wait her turn. As Kella watched the scene, she suddenly realized that the people here see others just like things. The leader then looks at him and says he will kill the Demon King's baby first. Kella stared at the exit, stunned that freedom was right there while he was about to die. He is furious because he was so close to getting away from it all. The mage lunges forward, dagger high, screaming that it's time for him to finally die. Hearing the scene, Rin screams out for Master Kella in despair, completely helpless. But suddenly, Kella is confused as a strange energy surges around him, leaving him with a weird feeling that something very powerful is waking up inside. Kella screams in despair at Gulpero as the huge figure of Helkalun stands before them. He stands stunned, wondering if the fight truly ended this fast, while Hellhound stares at him with a grim face and sighs that his plan has fallen apart. At that moment, Kella freezes in panic, completely baffled by how everything could have turned out so badly. Hell starts explaining that he's already fought through and weighed out every possible outcome. The boy stared in a total fog, puzzled and asking what on earth she meant. Hell points out that Telera simply doesn't care enough about the other demons to become queen, and Tari lacks the ambition needed for such a big role. Kella snaps, screaming that he doesn't care about them and demanding to know how Hell even got there. He then shows that a demon king can pass his magic power to his bloodline before he dies. The young man stood frozen in shock, his voice catching in a stutter as he struggled to believe what he'd just heard. We see that for a brief moment, his father reigned as king, leading Hell to believe Kella was the perfect choice for a true demon ruler. So Kella, desperate and scared, throws his hands forward and shouts that he was terribly wrong. Hell Khaldun introduces himself with a cold formality, completely ignoring his frightened son's plea. Hell chooses to pour every drop of his remaining magic straight into his son. Then he announces that the name of his son, the future king, is Kella Khaldun. Suddenly, a dark and powerful force rushes toward the scared boy. Kella screams out in despair, begging his dad to stop this craziness right now, but Hell just stares him down seriously and calls his name one last time. So he tells his son not to cry over his passing, but instead to step up and be a real demon. The scene shifts to the bloody battlefield where a wounded commander thrills, gasping for air, whispers the name of the great demon king to Hell Khaldun's blood-streaked face. She shouts to the crowd that the demon king is finally dead, while behind her, the fallen General Killman lies on the ground with his spear thrown aside. They learn that the general gave his own life so they could win this battle. Shrills crumbles into despair, screaming out in grief as she mourns the loss of her friend. Word gets around fast, and the rest of the soldiers are left stunned when they hear what really happened. A joyous shout rings out, declaring that the demon king, Hell Khaldun, has fallen. Just as the clock wound down, Hell's eye shifted to show he had heard every word. Kella lets out a scream of pain as a strange and dark power takes over his body. Suddenly, a beam of light shoots toward the demons, almost hitting them all. Rin is stunned to see that young Master Kella's own magic power scattered the attack. The Sky Mage freezes in panic, unable to figure out how his magic suddenly grew so strong, just as Kella starts laughing in a creepy way that leaves everyone completely confused. He lifts his head with an evil grin, whispers the name Hell, and gloats that his plan worked while the desperate mages, running out of magic, scream for a way to escape. Kella jumps in front of Run, her face serious, and tells her to step back. He feels an endless darkness and knows this is the terrible power Hell gave him. The mages scream in terror, begging the demon to stay away from them at all costs. Kella gets so mad at hearing the word demon that she demands to know what they said to Run. A burst of purple light throws him forward as he charges the two humans with furious eyes, screaming that they are the real monsters. Before anyone can even blink, Kella slams the two mages hard into the wall. The men hit the ground in pain, admitting defeat against the young demon. Kella then looks at what he made, realizing this crazy power came from his dad, Hell. But he notices his body is too weak to handle all that power yet. Worried, the boy spins around and asks Ren if she can still move. The frightened servant nods and admits she can walk. With that, Kella knew it was time to run, so the two of them took off. He steps toward the exit, grateful to his dad for getting them out of the castle. The scene shifts, showing the two walking away while the castle behind them burns. Kella finally let out a breath of relief, tasting true freedom for the very first time in his life. He starts laughing with pure joy at his success. With a confident grin, he declares that he can go anywhere and live however he pleases. Then suddenly, a blue beam of light just pops up out of nowhere and slices right across the sky. Caught in that strange light, Kella asks what it is while Run gets scared. The girl screams in terror, shouting that it's a teleportation spell. Kella stands frozen in shock, staring at the bright light without knowing what is going on. In a last-ditch effort, he screams for Run to take his hand, but she is frozen in fear and can't move fast enough to save him. Suddenly, a huge beam of light falls from the sky and wraps around the young demon. The camera zooms out to show a whole island town filled with houses, turning out to be a secret school. Suddenly, the same blue beam of light showed up and pointed right to where we needed to land. Kella and Rin glance around, and he growls in anger, demanding to know just where the hell they ended up. Rin spun around in a panic, completely lost, and shouted for her master, Kella. She claims she didn't know he could teleport, but he insists he couldn't. We were warned that this alarm spell would summon a vision of hell right before our eyes. Kella reveals that his father put it there just in case he passed away. Suddenly, Rin looks down in shock to find that all her wounds have vanished and she is completely healed. He figured they must have been stuck inside that teleportation place for about 3 days. He was convinced his dad planned it on purpose so they could heal when emergencies happen. Rin stares in shock, realizing that one spell had done both healing and teleportation. Kella realizes that his father's spells show he truly cared about his kids. Rin asks if the Demon King is truly gone, and he confirms it is so. The boy spins around with a grin, saying everything went exactly as he hoped. The servant then decides to speak with her master about what comes next. She stares at him with fierce resolve and tells him to take the throne of the Demon King. Kella spins around in surprise and wonders why he'd do something like that now. She realized that seeing how he has changed, he's the only one worthy of the throne. Rin pledges her heart to serve him until he sits upon the throne. Kella is totally lost, thinking she misunderstood his plan, but he just sighs and agrees to help since he needs a handout. She is shocked by his reply and asks him to wait a moment while she thinks. The scene shifts to a massive, beautiful castle nestled among countless trees. As they walk, Kella realizes where they are, and both him and Rin feel their hearts race with fear. They discover they are in the magical land of Arsul, where they train young heroes with one goal: to defeat the demons. A huge banner hangs up to tell everyone that the demon king Helkildun has finally died. Kella and Run freeze in terror, realizing they've stumbled straight into enemy land. His heart races with fear, knowing just how bad things would get if they got caught. Rin quickly proposes they use magic to change their forms before anyone notices them. He agrees right away, and they rush to change their looks. Now hidden in disguise, Kella asks Run to share every secret he knows about the place. She tells us that Arsul is a tiny island guarding the eastern edge of the kingdom of Talua. Rin says they are lucky because a giant sea creature named Watergore protects them. Because this blessing let magic grow on its own, they train mages who became incredibly powerful. As members of the Talua kingdom, they have been fighting demons for a long time. Kella listens to all the trouble and wonders why his father sent him to such a dangerous place. Rin panics and wants to run immediately, but he calmly tells her they need to prepare properly before they can escape. The boy knows that if he wants to make his dreams come true, he needs magic to help him. He quickly sees that in this land, every single thing gets done with the help of magic. Even ordinary buildings are touched by magic, and some of them float high above the ground. He believes that by learning magic here, he can build even more things than the game lets him do. All at once, Rin's belly lets out a loud rumble, and the girl turns bright red with shame. When she saw this, Kella decided they needed to grab something to eat first. She then snatches up Arsul's legendary magical dish, her eyes shining with pure hunger. They both taste the food, love it so much that she screams how delicious it is. Rin, buzzing with excitement, points eagerly at the next stall, desperate to taste a little bit of everything. Rin takes a bite of the bread and screams that it's amazing. So with Kella right there pointing at everything, he seriously thinks about just leaving her there. Then, they discover a magical bar, and Kella sighs, telling her to just relax for a moment. Inside, a man shouts that drinks are free to celebrate the death of the Demon King. Commander Sriels lifts her mug as the crowd cheers the great mage of Errol, lifting her onto their shoulders to celebrate the victory of Sriels of Tolkien. Kella and Run, two of the lightest guests, join the party to celebrate the free drinks. Feeling a little tipsy, he decides that taking a break might just be the perfect idea. Suddenly, Commander Sri spots the young man, and his eyes light up with interest. Kella and Rin keep drinking and laughing, already quite tipsy from the alcohol. Sri grins with mischief as he watches them. Kella lies sick on the street while Rin yells at him for drinking too much. She recalls that he was the one who proposed drinking to celebrate his father's passing during the festival. Suddenly, a man dashes past shouting that there's a brand new S-rank mission for everyone. Kella and Rin stand puzzled as Rin wonders about the crazy noise and crowd in the city. Until now, the only S-rank mission was to hunt the Great Demon King. Rin is stunned to find another mission this big, so she drags a curious Kella right through the crowd to see it herself. A fresh poster on the wall shows that the Demon King's kids are still loose. Right in the heart of the crowd, Kella and Rin stopped dead in their tracks, staring at the poster with wide eyes as if they'd just seen something impossible. Rin points wildly at the new S-rank target, who is none other than young Master Kella himself. He panics and screams that his dad is already dead, confused about why he is the one being chased. Rin quickly covers his mouth, pretending he's just really drunk to hide the truth. Everyone thinks the mission will be easy since it's Kella, the weakest son, so they all get ready to head out as if it's just another B-rank quest. Kella snaps with anger, knowing he has to vanish before he gets caught. Kella spins around with a hard look and says they have to go now. As they walk, she pauses and asks what he wants people to call him. He holds his silence for a heartbeat, weighing the perfect fake name to wear as a mask. Then he told her to call him Chiyu, which left the girl completely baffled by his strange choice. She wonders what name he's using, and he shouts at her to just do what he says. Rin says things are going badly because she never expected them to catch him so quickly. But right as they tried to run away, Commander Sriels suddenly showed up in front of them. She smiles and asks if what they heard about the new S-rank mission is true. Kella nods with an embarrassed look, and Rin adds that they were just checking things out. He suddenly recalls that in the bar, they called her the soul of our hope, and he finally realizes just how important she is. Sriels takes a sip, wondering if the Demon King's son is still out there. Kella and Rin leaned in to whisper that their target is weak, so taking him won't be much of a problem. The commander hears them talking and gives them a dirty look. Right then, a cold shiver runs down their spines as they know danger is right behind them. Shri grabs Kella and asks if it really isn't a big deal that the Demon King's son is still alive. Shrill stared hard at Kella and whispered that she had seen something odd about them right from the beginning. Rin freezes in terror, convinced the commander has seen right through their disguise. With a terrifying smile, the woman claims they must be Kella and Rin, and though terrified, they realize she thinks she knows their secrets, so she invites them to her home, revealing they are just travelers who simply don't bathe. The two look utterly lost, with no idea what to make of the commander's strange offer. But they quickly cheer and celebrate, believing the danger is finally gone. Next, we find ourselves in a grand mansion where floating buildings shine under the moonlight. Inside, Kella soaks in a fancy tub filled with hot spring water. He is also given a cup of tea and some strange snacks he'd never seen before. The little boy picks up a sweet and wonders if it was made with magic. He then realizes that he always dreamed of living inside a game world just like this one. With his eyes shut tight, he knows his dream has finally come true. With a grin on his face, he decides that being in this new world isn't so bad after all. But Rin despairs, knowing that if they are caught, they will surely die. While in the other tub, Srills asks Rin if she thinks the spot is pretty cool. The commander thinks her worry is odd and jokes that she looks like a demon taken prisoner. Rin forces a laugh, trying to act like everything is fine. Suddenly, Srills lifts her hand and conjures a glowing ball of light that appears right before her. She smiles and says she'll use a calming scent to help the girl relax. But Rin freezes in terror because it smells like holy power, the one thing demons fear most. She knows her disguise is about to be ruined, so she immediately holds her breath. In her mind, she screams for help, crying out for young Master Kella. While Kella lounges in his tub, feeling totally safe, he has no idea that disaster is just about to strike. Shri starts unburdening herself, believing her pain will finally end with the king's death. But Rin panics and screams that he can't listen and demands they get out. The commander keeps talking and says she was born to be a mage. Rin can't hold back anymore, so she jumps out of the water and screams for her to save the memories for later. Then she quickly comes up with a lie about having to use the bathroom and dashes out with pure panic. Shrill stays alone in the tub with a smile that looks too suspicious. She chuckles and thinks the girl probably didn't like that special smell. Outside the bathroom, Rin let out a long breath of relief, convinced that was one close call too many. Just then, Kella showed up looking totally relaxed and started praising the hot water from the thermal springs. Rin gets furious and screams that her disguise spell was about to fail inside. She says that Shrills used a holy smell that steals the mana right out of demons. Kella's face grew serious as she admitted that things could have turned very ugly for them. After joking about taking another bath and making Rin even more annoyed, Shrills pops up asking if they're ready for a second round yet. Kella fumbles in nervous agreement, while Rin acts cool and eager to run away. Shrills pushes them to stay, asking if they aren't curious to try the magic drinks. The young man is completely spellbound by the idea of food magic, a wonder he has never known before. Then he accepts the invitation, leaving Rin in despair as she screams her master's name. The scene shifts to show a group of mages arriving at the commander's house under the cover of night. One of them asks if demons are truly there, and the other nods and says yes. Their talk shows these aren't just any demons but the Demon King's own sons, so they grab them and run, knowing this is a chance they can't miss. Inside the house, the commander's trap is already rolling into action. She pours out a drink and shows that it's filled with holy water. Kella feels his body burn and complains that he got excited about the magic food for nothing. The commander brushes him off and goes back to talking about her life. She told him that to kill the king, she risked her life by training with the Tolkien squad. Then, she shows the scar on her stomach, a mark left by a test she had back then. Kella and Rin look shocked, and he points out that he has never seen that scar on her before. She gazes at the scar with a sad smile and wonders if anyone can truly see its beauty. She then drops a bombshell by showing they've been looking at a one-eyed stranger, leaving the pair stunned by the shock. Kella and Rin stood frozen, staring in shock at the impossible scene right before them. The commander tells her that she used magic to hide her scars because they bring back terrible memories. In the past, the instructor shouted for everyone to stand up and focus on the Demon King. It turns out the whole squad was built with one job, to take down the Great King. Even with bruises all over her body, the young girl pressed on, knowing she had to survive the pain to win. The instructor shouts again, telling everyone to finally say what they really want. Hating them with her eyes, she said that everyone just wanted to kill the Demon King. Now that she's back, she admits those scars are the price she paid with her life. She leans into Kella and asks what he's been up to all this time. She pulls his shirt up insisting there has to be a scar there as well. The young man stands frozen in shock, unsure how to respond, while she stares in amazement at his perfectly smooth skin, which is completely free of scars. Rin watches everything with desperate hope, silently praying to young Master Kella in her mind. Then he realizes her gentle touch is slowly peeling off his magic disguise. Shrills whispers the fake name Chi Wu right into his ear. She gives him a dark look and bluntly asks if he's really a demon. Kella freezes in shock, suddenly understanding that the commander had known everything all along. But suddenly, a bunch of white rats with glowing red eyes burst into the room. Just then, a bunch of mages crash into the room, shouting a huge lightning spell. The commander gasped in shock, shouting that the mages just popped into existence out of nowhere. Kella and Run stare at each other in pure terror as they realize she had led them right into a trap. Shrills then smiles as she turns and agrees that everyone's arrival was a good thing, while the mage leader points to her eye to confirm that the message from the heavens was correct. He then shouts at her, blaming her for hiding who she really is. They found out that Shrills is a demon hiding inside the kingdom of Arsal. As everyone stares in shock at the news, she looks them straight in the eyes with a bright smile. Kella feels lost because she realizes they aren't there for him, but only for her. Shrills grips her staff tightly and declares there is no reason left to hide. Then, she pulls back the curtain to show that she herself was the one who let everyone know she was a demon. The head mage screams, "Don't wait a second," and commands his people to kill her, yet Shrill stares them down with confidence and warns that she's a top-tier mage from Tolkien. She declares that no ordinary mage from Arsal can best her and then floods the air with her power. Suddenly, their masks slip, and Rin screams at Master Chu to move aside. He starts panicking and screams that things have just gone completely wrong for them now. Suddenly, a massive blast of purple and blue energy swallows the whole hall. As the dust finally settles, the scars of the fight we just survived begin to show. Rin was stunned, unable to believe the immense power she felt radiating from the commander. Kella and Rin are puzzled, and he wonders if she just saved them. She spins around and sees the truth they can't hide. They are demons too. She smiled and stepped forward, revealing herself as Shrill's Calaldun, the daughter of the demon king Helcown. Kella and the girl next to him froze in shock at what they just heard. Commander Shrill shouts that she's about to cast a spell to move her memories. The magic strikes them both, freezing them in shock as the visions unfold. The story jumps back in time to show Helkin standing right next to a strange, hooded demon. The vision reveals a little girl lying on the ground, hiding her horns from a demon. Suddenly, she realizes the man standing right in front of her is Hell itself, the Demon King. The mighty Demon King suddenly reveals that his blood is flowing through her veins. He speaks with a strong voice and declares, "She is now my daughter," leaving the tiny girl frozen in shock as she can't believe the Demon King just adopted her. The memory lingers, and she recalls being treated like a lab rat. Every single day was a nightmare, filled with terrible experiments and painful tests forced upon her and the other children. Little Sri stayed quiet while taking all the pain, but sadly, the other children born like her didn't make it through. The little girl was all alone and so desperate that she could only cry as she faced her sad reality. She thought she was going to die just like everyone else, her eyes full of tears and sadness. But still lying on the ground, she wonders if what she heard was actually true. As she looked at Helsin, she couldn't believe she was the Demon King's daughter, but then a smile spread across her face, and she said it was an incredible honor. Hel then gives her the name Shrun and tasks her with slipping into heaven as a spy, a mission she eagerly accepts. Driven by love for her father Helkildun, she is ready to do anything for him. The view shifts to the castle gate, where someone screams that they saw someone lying on the ground. Two men rush over and discover little Sal's, who is scared because she thinks demons attacked her. One of them scoops her up and says they need to carry her inside to take care of her. As she was being carried, she started acting like a spy for the Demon King. From that day forward, she pushed herself to the limit and weathered every storm to become a mage of our very own soul. After struggling for a long time, she finally broke through and grew even stronger. Soon, Shrills grew to be one of the toughest fighters in the elite Tolkien squad. 15 years later, the picture reveals Turk Calaldun, the Demon King who once ruled, looking on. Right then, she finally found her dad again after such a long time. She wanted to run and hug him with a heavy heart, but she couldn't. She wiped her tears, believing her dream was right around the corner. The plan was to wait until every soldier was dead, except for Kilman. She had to sneak in and use her secret magic to mess things up for the Tolkien squad from the inside. And so, she stood by her father's side until he finally put a blade in General Kilman's chest. She dreamed that once her father won, she could finally walk back into the castle with him. All she ever wanted was to start a fresh life right by his side, becoming Shril's Kaldan. The scene cuts back to the fight, where Kilman cheers for Turk's amazing power and says he went way beyond what anyone expected. But the former Demon King just scoffs and tells him he doesn't need praise from a human like Kilman. Kilman flashes a defiant grin, calls the other guy arrogant, and gets ready for the final showdown. He shouts that this is his last move, throwing everything he has into a spear of holy light that crackles with unbelievable power. Turk refuses to yield and loads his Hellfire weapon to meet the incoming attack. Seeing the might of both attacks, Sri desperately shouts her father's name. A massive boom erupts, and Sri watches from far away. Suddenly, she hears her father's voice echoing in her mind. In a vision, Turk Kaldan called her by name and told her she was his daughter. Shril's freezes in shock right before shouting his last order. He asked her to serve the next Demon King, just like she served him, and to protect him until the very end, which made Shril start crying. Once the order is given, the explosion swallows everything, blending the two energies together. As the dust settles and shows the battle's result, all that remains of Turk Kaldan is his head falling from the sky, leaving Shril's in despair as she watches her father turn to dust. She stared in disbelief, shaking her head as if to say, "No way, this can't be happening." She screams out to her dad, whose face is burned into her mind because he is dying. After watching her father die, she had no choice but to ride back to Talawa with the arriving support forces. While she bore the pain, the crowd shouted in joy over the Demon King's defeat. People from across the land, even those from Talua, gathered to honor her father's passing. After that, she chose to hang up her commander's badge and walk away from her life of leading. So Sri went back to Arsal, her second home and the place where her first mission began. She decided to begin her new life in that town, but she would have to wear a fake smile to do it. But deep down, all she really wanted was to get revenge for her dad's death, no matter what it took. The memory fades, only for her to reveal her true plan to wipe everyone out starting with Arsal, leaving the gay-haired girl in shock as she realizes the Demon King has a daughter. Kella's heart sank as he realized his demon siblings were far from gone. Even though they weren't related by blood, he never thought he'd find another sister. Shril's then says she won't force them to help, but she has one thing to tell them. She tells us that our soul, a magical land, is a deadly danger to demons, and the longer they let Arsal live, the faster Kellican will perish. The warning makes Kella go stiff, knowing the danger is right there and very real. He tightened his fist, reminding himself that even in the game, mages were a powerful force. Seeing the danger ahead, he knows that if he lets this go, he's the one who will get hurt. The magic leader knows the blast will bring others running, so he shouts for everyone to pour all their power into the attack right now. Kella is absolutely livid because they attacked him without thinking twice, even though they were sure he was just a human. The servant Rin trembled at the change and shouted out for her young master. Now sporting sharp horns and a dark, threatening vibe, Kella claims she's just defending herself. Just then, Commander Sri spun around, shocked by the sudden surge of power she had felt. She stares with wide eyes, unable to believe what is happening. She then realizes this energy might be her father's power. That night, they battled an endless war against the mages of Arsal. Since Arsal felt like a second home to her, Sri knew every corner of the place. Armed with that power, she tore through the city's weak spots, leveling the government buildings and the magic academy with ruthless force. Kella drew on Hell's own dark power to push back against the monsters waiting to kill her. He chased down those who were drunk on the festival's power and, with his own blue energy, crushed anyone who stood in his way. The soldiers could only scream for help, but it was already too late. Because the siblings worked together, the magical kingdom of Arsal was easily destroyed and taken over by the evil demon pair. The whole city burned with the sky turning red from the fire. The mage leader on the ground couldn't believe how easily Urul took him down. With his face covered in blood, he screams that he will never forgive the demons. While the town burns around them, a surviving mage screams in rage, but Kella shouts back that the mage is the one who can't forgive them for what they did. Shril's grins like a madman and promises to wipe them all out, starting right now with them. Kella and the girl stare in shock at her crazy words, unable to believe what they are hearing. Kella is done with this mess, so he tells them to pack up their own gear and walk separate paths. But Sri stops him, telling him she knows his mana, and that his name is Kella Kaldan. Kella jumps, but then decides he has nothing left to hide. He lets out a heavy sigh of defeat and simply tells her who he is. She was stunned to be right, while Kella got annoyed after falling for a bluff. Shrills then admits she was only a little suspicious, but now she is certain. She tells us she isn't a normal daughter, but a special being born from her father's very energy. The commander walks up to him and tells him that she was made long after he was born. She smiles and calls him her older brother, which scares Kella. She changes the topic and asks him to help her take revenge on the man who killed their dad. Kella fumes that he ran away and doesn't care about their revenge at all. Shrill stares him down with a scary expression and asks if he's trying to run away from his duty. Then she reveals that he is the final son of the Demon King, the only one left alive. Terrified, the girl begs Kella to just agree because Shrills looks like she's about to kill them. Kella declares he'll take revenge someday, but knows he can't act right now. Feeling satisfied, Shrills orders them to leave and warns that they will burn everything to the ground. He nods in agreement, while shielding the scared girl standing next to him. Deep in his thoughts, Keller admits he needs Arsel's magic, and Sri knows all about it. So, he pretends he wants revenge just to buy some time and treat her like a friend. Slumped on the ground, the mage leader watches the demon slip away and secretly vows he must rush to tell Talawa what he just saw. The scene shifts as a messenger bursts into the castle with urgent news from Arsal. As the great king of Talawa took a bite, he asked what the important message was. The man reveals that Shriels from the Tolkien squad is actually a demon and that the mages try to kill her. The king puts down his food with a grave expression and asks what comes next. The messenger ended his story by saying that Kellican showed up and burned our soul to ash right beside her. The king froze in shock, squeezing his fork so hard it bent in half. He screams in anger, unable to believe that the Demon King's son is standing right there in Arsal. The advisor then shares his hunch that Kella might know something about Sri. The king is furious and warns that if word gets out about Arsal being burned down, things will go badly. The man next to him nods in agreement, adding that it will make everyone laugh right in their faces. The king, burning with hatred, orders them to kill Shrills and Kella before anyone else learns the truth. The advisor, named Hayden, puts his very name on the line, promising he will kill both of them. Once he gives his word, he spins around and strides out of the throne room with pure determination. Hayden halts before a glass cube holding Turk Calden's head. Staring at the trophy, he grumbles that the curse of the Helkalun bloodline just won't let him rest. He swears to set fire to anyone carrying that demon's blood. Suddenly, the scene shifts as someone asks for news on Killian's squad. Hayden says that General Killian must have gotten the word to come back already. Far away, the secret of a strange man called Killian is finally shown to us. Hayden says Killian is the finest knight, even better than the legendary Killman, and they will need his help to defeat Kella and Shrills. The scene shifts, and Killian, clutching a scroll, asks if his brother Killman has died. The messenger proudly claims he died fighting the Demon King, but Killian just yells that he was killed by a demon. The man then tells him that the kingdom of Talawa needs him to hunt down Kellican. He tells Talua he doesn't care what she wants, but since demons killed his brother with a dark aura, he promises to hunt down and kill every demon on the continent. He sneered with pure hate before declaring that Kella Caledon would be his first victim. Kella stood back at the camp, his face twisted in total confusion as he couldn't make a single thing make sense. By the light of the campfire, Shrills admits that the piece of meat she has left is hardly enough to go around. Ren finally asks Shrills how she stays so thin without ever gaining weight, but Shrills just gives a weird answer that makes no sense. The girl stares in shock, convinced she's just found something magical. Kella feels relieved that she isn't trying to kill him like his other siblings. He then asks if she still holds a grudge against him for being their father's biological son. She stares at him with terrifying anger, even wishing she could kill him. But Sri reminds her that since he carries their father's blood, she can't bring herself to truly hate him. Because of that shared blood, she feels she has to protect him. Kella feels surprised because, unlike her brothers and sisters, she wants to look after him. Right then, she takes his hand and makes a big promise. Sri smiles and vows to risk her own life just to keep him alive. Kella turns bright red with embarrassment, mumbles a thank you, and leaves Run staring in shock. The little demon goes wild, screaming and demanding to know why he's turning red. She tries to shove food into his mouth, but he just says he's not hungry. Rin promises to guard his life until the very end, which makes Kella feel uncomfortable. The dark events and the news about Arsal will surely draw a crowd of demon hunters right to this place. Shrill shouts that the place isn't safe and they need to leave, but Kella insists it's perfect while Rin looks on, totally confused. He smiles and promises that with just a bit of work, the place will turn into a fortress. Kella and Sri use their magic to shift the ground beneath them and build a secret hiding place. While resting in their temporary hideout, He took a moment to think back on what he'd learned from the fight. He knew he had to rest, just like the Demon King once did, after burning through so much mana. The more power you drew, the longer it took to recover. And so, they finally managed to rest, safe and sound within their secret fortress. Suddenly the view shifts and a bright trumpet blast rings out to say a mighty squadron is coming in. This is the second Tolkien squadron, the White Tolkien, commanded by the fearless Killian himself. The guard shouts to the king that the famous squadron has finally made it to the castle. The king shivers with awe just looking at them, stunned by how much power they hold. He smiles as he welcomes his strongest squadron, the White Talents. One night, named Deed notes that Captain Killian has grown far stronger. He smiles and tells his General Kilman would be thrilled to meet this. Killian hears the words but stays quiet, giving nothing away. Right then, an elf suddenly shouted at Deed, telling him to shut up and show some respect. Deed then complains about her loud voice, saying she's just like always. Suddenly, a fellow soldier wonders if they truly must obey the king. He says his anger won't stop, even if they kill Kellicaldun right now. Killian stops the talk to say sorry to his friend Kala. He then says he has something he needs to show a woman named Curdlay. The scene shifts as the squadron steps into one of the castle's grand halls. He looks inside and sees Turk Calden's head, finally realizing he has found him. Killian stared him down with icy eyes, calling him Hellcown, the name of the man who killed his brother. Deed grimaces in disgust, but the others quickly hush him up. Killian asks Curdlay if the tracking spell will still work if they only have his head. She says yes and casts her magic to trace his bloodline. The tracking magic flares with a bright, glowing light, waking up the power hidden inside the demon's head. Killian stares at the face and tells Helcaldan to keep his eyes wide open and watch everything. He gives a creepy grin and warns him to watch what they're about to do next. The former Demon King's eye stares right at the danger, like he finally gets what's happening. The scene shifts as Shrills yells that now that they've rested, it's time to hunt down the enemies. Little Ren is so confused by what she just heard that she asks about the second squadron. Sri then explains that in Talua, no one had much hope for the first.